our topic for this first panel in the series of 4 panels that we will have today and tomorrow is networking and networks. The idea is to explore how networks can actually be more than the groups of professional contacts, how actually networks can be drivers of change, how they can be also communities for learning, how they can be communities for mutual support. But also with networks, we will explore how networks can become entities with their own sets of challenges. Along this discussion, we will be switching between countries, between perspectives, national, regional, international, European. Also, we will be switching between disciplines. So I have this pleasure to discuss all these topics with wonderful speakers, and I will try to introduce them briefly, which is absolutely not easy because all of them have impressive biographies and they have many achievements, and they often very often exercise various roles. So I will start on my right-hand side with Nikola Mijatović, who is artistic director of Festival Cirkobalkana, that was already mentioned as one of our partners, but is more importantly for our panel, this panel, is that he's also president of Croatian Association of Contemporary Circus Artists. Next to him, Mirna Zagar, artistic director of Dance Week Festival, also partner, also mentioned in the introduction, and also president of Croatian Institute for Movement and Dance that is actually organizing Dance Week Festival. Then Antonia Kuzmanić, founder of Room 100 in Split, artistic director of Peculiar Families Festival, that was also mentioned. And for our panel today, very important is that Antonia is also a board member of Circostrada network, a international network for the circus, contemporary circus, and outdoor arts. On my left-hand side, Chloé Béron, co-founder of CIAM, Centre International des Arts en Mouvement, International Center for Arts in Movement, but also a representative of French umbrella association, Territoires du Cirque, that is regrouping around 50 members, different structures in different areas of France that are consecrated to circus. And Anera Stopfer, head of Creative Europe Desk, Croatia. With us online, I'm not sure, you don't see him at the moment, but I hope that he sees us, Laurent Méheust, who was a long-serving deputy director of CLAP in Marseille and who is now newly appointed head of National Choreographic Development Center in La Gymnase. And hello, and he's also, more importantly for our discussion today, a president of the director board of European Dancehouses Network since 2019. So let's start, as we started this way. So I would like to really start with Nikola and to start with the Association of Croatian Circus Artists, as it is also the youngest organization and that we are presenting today. It was created last year. For me, it is interesting to see like you and Antonia, who is also vice president of this umbrella association, is that both of you already had your organizations, but still you decided to join forces and to create an umbrella organization. Why was this necessary, and what are you trying to achieve through this joining of forces actually?
Hello everybody. Yes, the first is why we decide this, because in the structure in Croatia it's function like this, that we have umbrella association for every type of art, I will say like this. So we have drama association, dance, I don't know, designers and writers and everybody. So we decided in the moment when COVID started that every of artists have some support from the Ministry of Culture, from the city, from because everybody's stuck in the time in this moment. So we are stay nowhere without support, with nothing. So we started to speak about this, that maybe now is the moment that we try to make something, and we start to speak about this first with the Ministry of Culture, and from Ministry of Culture we have some input that will be only one way, that we are organizing like umbrella association with the contemporary circus artists, and we start with this to find the way to go in the law, because the circus artist here in Croatia is not in the part of art. So we start in 2020 with this. We make big working group, and work almost 1 year on everything to
on the legal stuff.
Yeah. And in 2021 we registered association and start with contact with the Ministry of Culture, and it's going in some positive way. Ministry of Culture is, I will say, finally recognized that we are artists, that we are not just event entertainment people. And last week Antonia and me was on the meeting with the minister Nina Ogunjan, and with Nevena Perković Tudor, and the meeting is going in very positive way. So how I see this, that we are on the good way, and I hope that very soon it's started to change.
That next year at this panel we will talk about how circus got recognized. That's the ambition.
Yeah.
I think, but it's very important that you are mentioning that these umbrella organizations are actually, and these types of networks are actually very useful as tools for advocacy. And it's also very important what you mentioned, that recognition of an art form is not only a recognition of the value, but also it's an institutional recognition, which implies institutional support in very different situations. And yes, it was most obvious at the moment of pandemics when everybody needed support. So, but let's jump across Europe and check the situation in France. I think I somehow always feel obliged to say that from where we are standing today in Zagreb, in Croatia, but also more largely in Southeastern Europe, situation with circus in France always looks idyllic to us. I mean, and we somehow tend to lose from sight that actually the status of circus in France was also something that was fought for a very long time, and that is also and still is, exactly. And that's also what I would like to hear from you, like what is Territoires de Cirque doing in this way, and what is the situation, and how are you actually, what are you trying to achieve through these joining forces in France?
Yes, as a network, I feel like the elderly of the of the panel, because Territoires de Cirque was built in 2004, so it's a long time ago, and it was following a really structural year in France, 2001. That was a year dedicated to circus arts that helped a lot structuring the network. And Territoires de Cirque was originally built with like 10 or 12 structures that had the label that is a national pole for circus arts. Mm-hmm. That is the quite similar to what used to be in dance or theater. It's like big places dedicated to creation in circus arts. So they started with that network of those 10 places that were structural for the circus network. And then with the the ecosystem evolving, they had to include new partners because there were also other venues, smaller ones, different ones that were really structural for the circus arts. And they started to feel a little alone with those 10 people. So now it's 50 different venues in Territoires de Cirque that are fighting for the recognition of circus arts. Yes, it's way more recognized than in other countries, but still it's 2% of the credits of the Ministry of Culture in France. That means that there is still a lot to go. And yes, Territoires de Cirque is a structure for lobbying. And it was really useful during the COVID crisis to try to bring up the specificities of circus arts, especially the subject about the bodies, the way to go back to circus arts. It was close to sports issues, more than theater issues, for example. We had a lot of issues about health. And so Territoires de Cirque was a good way to go to the ministry and rise up those issues. And in the same time, it's a good place for exchanges. We have a lot of debates on climate issues for the moment, on the way to collaborate and how to collaborate between venues and artists. And especially during the COVID crisis, we had a lot of discussions about the way that we treated artists and how to collaborate and how to also be a voice for them, for their issues. And because it's a network of venues, it doesn't include artists. And it was built like this because we need places to discuss about difficult issues of venues that include artists, but need to be we need a free space to discuss even topics that are not really easy for artists to hear in that way. So it's easier to solve the issues in that moment. But during the COVID crisis, we had the feeling that Territoires de Cirque was in a weird position because it was defending the venues and how to defend the artists and the venues, and in the main topics that were raised to the ministry, it was first a lot about the venues and not that much about the artists, and it generated a lot of debates inside the network. But that's why a network is built, and it should be a place where you can discuss without outside criticism or fights of powers. That's why it's only venues and not artists and not the financing parts. So we can address together the questions and even be not politically correct in those debates, and then agree on a way to
how to address.
Yeah, how to address the ministry. And I think it helps also the ministry in a way, because it's quite difficult if you don't have a clear voice coming from the field to bring back the issues, especially in those periods when you need to be really reactive, because it's not the life, but kind of the life of structures that is at stake. So you need to be really reactive, and you need to have one way, one voice.
And at the same time, I very appreciate what you mentioned, like that networks are also those safe spaces for discussion within their members. But also what you mentioned, like, as you said yourself, like this is an organization that was built in 2004, and it like, there is a certain history, and there were new members and the various types of members. So it's also interesting to explore this dynamic of what it means, how the network adapts to accepting new members, and how it adapts to different voices also coming different needs. Maybe if you feel like now to reacting to that.
It's like a family. I mean, you have the new kids coming, and so it's first the elderly early ones are teaching what was used to be, and then comes a how you say, adolescence,
teenagers,
and then it makes it a little bit more difficult. And then there is, I mean, the world is changing, and sometimes you need the networks to be reflecting how the world is, how the ecosystem is, and sometimes it's the moment when you need to share those seats. We have the same debate with men and women issues. It's how is, as there is as many, also the same number of seats, then some need to be free, so newcomers are entering. So it's always the networks. They stay alive if they move, if they keep reflecting what is the ecosystem. It's like politics. It's like all this. It needs to be deeply rooted in the field. So it needs to change if the field changes. Otherwise, the risk is that new networks will come up. To reflect the new way of working of the ecosystem. So we are trying. It's a lot of discussion. It's a lot of teenagers, adults, elderly discussion at that moment, but it's interesting because it needs to reflect all of this. It's not building a new network will be as dangerous as not transforming the first one, because it needs to reflect both point of view, the experienced one and the new ones all together.
Thank you for these very interesting remarks. And I would also just add that CM, just like Cirkorama and Room 100, is also a member of Circostrada, so European Network for Contemporary Circus and Outdoor Arts, which was created in 2003 in France. So it is the oldest actually network that we are presenting here. And the core mission of this organization was furthering the development, empowerment, and recognition of these two fields at the European and international level. So Antonia is a board member of this organization. So for me, it would be interesting to see, and I hope for our audience as well, what is the role of Circostrada in the dialogue with the policymakers across Europe? And do you think that this experience of Circostrada in this advocacy for circus could also be somehow translated in Croatia and in terms of recognition of circus in Croatia?
So thank you. Hi to everybody. So yes, I have many hats, so you will see me in this 2 days. Let's start from this last question. So Circostrada as a European network for advocacy in one part actually help us with the Croatian Circus Network in this advocacy moment towards Ministry of Culture, because we had to apply for this special status of umbrella organization with the support letters. So Stefan, the coordinator, wrote us an amazing letter explaining what is the status of contemporary circus and outdoor arts in France, how they fight for it, and what does it mean now, and what are the many different pluses and different opportunities that contemporary circus has in France. And they were not the only one. Of course, we received a support letter from Circus Next, Busol organization from Portugal, Czech Republic, I mean Circon from Czech Republic sent us also a support letter because we want to have like FedEx, like whole Europe is behind us. And it really helped because it showed that this is not some crazy idea from us. It's something that is very up to date, and it's very needed for the Croatia, but also for our region, because in a way Croatia is now leading the changes in the region that should be happening in other countries. So this was one of the advocacy moments from the Circostrada, and the big advocacy activities that Circostrada is doing is that actually they trust us as 100, but also Cirkorama and Cirkusfera from Belgrade, because it's a adventure, a shared activity that we are hosting general meeting. General meeting is an assembly of Circostrada members that will happen next year in April in Split. And it's something that can really change a lot for us. It gives a new perspective to the Ministry of Culture. It will give a new perspective to the city of Split. I'm speaking in future because a lot of meetings should happen already, but we don't have a government at the moment. So we have early elections. So all the meetings about what is going to happen next year will just happen after summer. And to host this kind of meeting in the country like Croatia, it really gives a lot of visibility for our region, for our organization, as towards our partners and our colleagues in Europe. But most important is this advocacy moment towards city, towards local and regional partners and governments, because in the end it increased the level of financing.
And was it a deliberate choice that made for the Circostrada to make this meeting next year in Croatia?
Yes. I believe like Circostrada is coordinated by Arsena, a French organization, and it has a really small coordination team of only 3 people, plus some stage persons. And I think Circostrada, and it has a board which consists of 7 different presenters of organizations. Circostrada is also a network of organization, not artists. And first, there is always, it's of course an open call to apply for the board members, but it's always, the goal is to have a really diverse board. Between men and women, but also between different territories. And it was really a strong call to other people that are not based in France, in Belgium, in Netherlands, or like the core of contemporary circuit to apply for a board member, but not also to apply for the board, to apply to host different activities. For example, Circostrada is next week in Lithuania as a part European Capital of Culture in Kaunas. And it's amazing thing that Contemporary Circus is going there. The whole members, like I think there is 60 partners that are going there, and they will be present. And that will really help a local partner, Festival Cirkobalkana, to talk about contemporary circus and to really like try to advocate for better working conditions. I believe as a board member, but also as a member of Circostrada since 2016, that we as a network have a really good strategy towards spreading to Europe, but also going beyond. Circostrada is present in various countries like Japan, South Korea, USA, Canada, North Africa, and it was a deliberate choice. Even though it's a European network, the board and the coordination team felt that it's needed, that there are members from outside Europe, because it helped them a lot to achieve good projects and good support from their local or the national government. And we saw like a big change of development of contemporary circus, especially in South Korea, after one of the visits of Circostrada network. And after there was like 20 members there present, the local organization really achieved a lot and really gained recognition and financial support to start developing contemporary circus. So there is kind of these different activities. Really the network is trying to spread all over Europe. There are different kind of things that a member can host. So there is different kind of like financial support you need to have to host a network. There is the biggest event, which is a Fresh conference, and we are having next year in Paris 20 years of the Circostrada. So we are hosting a Fresh conference. Then there is general meeting, but also like smaller activities, like we were in Tilburg a month ago, talking about circus stands. And just for example, an advocacy activity after that is that Circostrada network is creating like a book, a tour book, how to tour with circus stands, but also how to bring a circus stand in your own city, which is quite an adventure because there are many rules in some countries, too many rules, and there are no rules, like in Croatia. So we are trying to feel what is needed in the European network, but also in the international world, and to give the knowledge and to share the knowledge.
But I think what is very important that you mentioned, and in a way how you described Circostrada, is that it is not only diverse as a network, but it is also trying really to be inclusive as a network. Like not only to have many different members, but really to hear voices from people and structures coming from different places, and to take into account those voices and to adapt to these realities.
Yeah, we are always saying that, like especially in the board, but also with all the meetings that we have, that it's very important to remember that there are different realities to Europe, and that Circostrada network is a place to be heard. There is an open call for new members during the whole year. So we read the application and we decide about our new babies of the network. Like in a couple of future teenagers, in like couple of weeks, like as soon as the board is managed to read and go through the applications. And we are really trying to be inclusive and really to think about that we cannot compare a French institution to one from Bulgaria, for example. And that network is really trying to reach to the new members and to, let's say, the member from the periphery to host some kind of organization. And that's why there is this different scale levels of activities, like the biggest one and also the smallest one that are actually quite accessible to organize.
You mentioned the word peripheries, but that is something that we will discuss tomorrow, actually, during a panel dedicated to decentralization, as you're also a member of one very interesting project, Circus and Peripheries. But we'll leave something for tomorrow so that you come back tomorrow as well. And we mentioned actually that Territoires du Cirque was created in 2004. And the very same year, actually, directors of 7 European dance houses started an informal network with the idea to promote the mobility of dance artists, to increase the support of the development of the dance arts in Europe, while relying on each other's sources. Now, this informal network in 2009 became European Dance House Network. Flash forward today, you have 47 members from 28 countries, and we have Laurent Méheust, who is today with us, and who had various perspectives of this network for over the last decade. As for a very long time, he was the deputy director of one of the members of this network. And since 2019, you are the president of the board of directors of EDN. So for me, it would be interesting to hear your different perspectives of what it means to actually be a member, and then the president of the network, how these perspectives are changing, what was the evolution of European Dance House Network, and what is your vision for the future of this network?
Okay, so thank you for the invitation, and it's a pity not to be there in the same room with colleagues and friends, but thank you again for the invitation. So yes, just a short history about EDN, meaning European Dance House Network. So as you said, in the beginning of the 2000s, some dance houses started in a very informal way to work together on an European scale. And EDN is a legal constitution based in Barcelona since 2009. At the beginning, it was co-founded by the EU Commission as a cooperation project between 12 dance houses for an international project called Module Dance. And in 2014, we operate a shift, meaning that we organize ourselves as an official network, a dance network, and we became the first dance network co-financed, by the EU Commission. It's a very important change because being organized as a cooperation project or a network is not at all the same goal, the same purpose, and I would say the same responsibilities. But I won't develop this. This is not the purpose. So EDN now is beginning. Sorry.
We can also mention those differences. Like, you know, if we have enough time, I think it would be also interesting to hear in what types what is that changing. But please go on.
With pleasure. EDN is now at the beginning of the third project as a network. It started in March, last March, for a 3 years duration, and it's called EDN Next. And we will focus on 3 themes, meaning that in 2020, this year, will be dedicated to sustainability. Next year, 23, will focus on equity, and 24 on well-being. And for this, we develop several activities each year. It can be carte blanche for staff or artists. It can be atelier, encounter beyond Europe, also publication, advocacy, and conference. And because a network, I mean, the way we define it is made that what people, the members, are, bring and share, we promote intelligent growth, meaning that we want to focus on quality over quantity in terms of our network size. So even if we start with 12 organizations, and now we are 47, 47, and new applicants are coming, so we are going to include probably new members next month during our next GA. We conceive EDN as a human bodies and keep a strong relation between people is an important values. Be sure that everyone can talk, can have a voice, and can meet and be close. Our responsibility as the European Dance Network is to be legitimate and relevant on an European scale. So when I became president in 2019, I proposed to develop our membership, including organization where EDN was not yet represented, meaning Lithuania, Romania, Macedonia, Bulgaria, as example. So it creates a new way to conceive our model, our dance house model, because to be clear, we are not naive, meaning that we conceive that in the coming years, we wouldn't see several new dance houses built here or there because of the policymaker, because of the economical situation, blah, blah, blah. So we had to, and we still have to, identify new initiative, strong professional, and start collaboration with them. And it's a way to change our membership criteria. It's, I would say, a natural evolution of a dance house network, assuming itself as the dance network, because we are still the only dance network financed by the EU. So we have a strong responsibility for that. And this is what we have in mind as a roadmap during our ongoing application, talking about sustainability, equity, and well-being. But I won't go too long. Maybe we can keep the conversation.
And I very much enjoyed the fact that you mentioned the word equity, and as we also had here mentioned with Antonia the word inclusion in networks. Now that I think it seems to me as one of the biggest challenges actually for all networks, how to go beyond diversity and even beyond inclusion to actually manage to come to the level of equity towards its members. So how are you planning to develop this aspect?
Yeah, so it will be the theme for the next year in 23, because during our working group meetings, when we were thinking about the next project, the next application, and where we want to be, one of the issues and the greatest interest, I mean, about our members was what we called ADIA, meaning equity, diversity, inclusion, and access. So this is a strong part of the activity for the next year. So we will organize atelier, invited artists, professional, meaning not only the members. We will go through publication. We will go also to collect data just to have a view on the European scale in the dance sector, of course, to understand what are the challenges, but also what is the real situation, to have a focus, a diagnostic, and then to collect data to implement, we hope, new next policy, to have conversation with our policymaker to develop new way to build the ecosystem together. So we have a lot of questions in mind, for example, to collect this information. Who occupies position of leadership in the sector? How diverse is the leadership in terms of gender, sexuality, race, ethnicity, ability, on the other critical factors, of course. What is needed to create more diversity in sector leadership? We are also going to, in a very transparent and in a very clear and honest way, the way we are organized as a network, and the way who are the director, who is in the board or not, who is the president, a white male position again. Of course we are, and I'm working on that in a very, to be honest, since I'm a president, to change the pyramid, I don't know how to call that, pyramidal organization, to conceive our network as very horizontal, and to invite new person to identify new professional in the dance sector on a European scale, to create bridges and to create partnership. So this is our goal, where we are going to develop our action.
Thank you, Laurent. And now as we promised, we are switching perspectives, because now we are going to Mirna, and her organization, Croatian Institute for Movement and Dance, is also a member of European Dancehouses Network, also a member of ITN. But what is also interesting for me, now you could also bring a different perspective to what Laurent was saying, from the point of view of a member, to what it means to be a member of European Dancehouses Network. But I would also like to talk to you about the network MAPAs, which you actually spearheaded, and which was sort of a unique model for alternative education in performing arts, and which basically influenced several generations of artists. And for me, it is really one of the beautiful examples of how networks can actually be communities and learning communities. I mean, the saying goes that all communities are networks, but not all networks are communities. And I think this is a very nice example of what it means when a network becomes a community.
Hello everyone, and thank you for inviting me here. I'd like to say, before I start talking about MAPAs, that for me personally, and the word value and shared values that Laurent brought up, and some others, so to have inclusion, to have equity, you have to have shared values, and to meet and partner, that's the common ground. So for me personally, I associate with and have strong feelings for you. You. I'm so happy it's going well. I think I'm here by saying the history. I'm really dating myself. Yeah, and the flyer of the festival says that as well. So the experience with networks and how MAPA's Moving Academy for Performing Arts, Zagreb, Amsterdam, Zagreb, really started much earlier. It wasn't that idea at all, but becoming one of the first members of the ITN network with Gordana Vnuk and Eurocas, and having and realizing that you can actually speak about and come up with beautiful ideas and share experience with people who are not necessarily in the same hierarchical, you know, like there are people with the same, at that time not that big, but later it became really big, but certainly bigger institutions or bigger organizations or larger projects than what my little festival and Eurocas were at the time, as initiatives that were individual led and project led by us as artists. In that network and the meetings over a period of time, I met a lot of colleagues, of course, in dance, because I was in dance, but I was particularly interested by some initiatives that were happening at the time for me in a new art form mime, having, you know, already working with some Dutch partners. And through that and the experiences in dance, I realized that what is lacking, and especially when we organized the forum, well, the ITM meeting here in Zagreb, and realizing that something went terribly wrong in this lack of value and understanding when my colleagues, our colleagues from the West were walking out of performances done by Croatian artists because they did not understand it. And my reaction was, well, isn't this the point of this network, sharing that experience, learning and all of that? And we got into quite a big, like a battle. And within those discussions, stronger associations and more were on this periphery. And most of the periphery in the performing arts was the mime. And I felt very comfortable there. So I thought that what would happen and what the need was, having already been working across Europe as well, this understanding of the value chain, understanding why we are doing what we are doing, that we're not here just for ourselves and the art form, but that art has a very specific role to play in society, has followed me and my understanding and the baseline for all I've done in my professional life. So meeting with colleagues from Holland and France and then East Germany, and some, we thought, well, we need to offer a system. We here have talent on the Eastern Europe. We have talent, we have knowledge. We don't have the resources. We don't, maybe are not aware of new methods and technologies. They, on the West, I was very bold in saying, you know, you need to be inspired, and inspiration you will find in the East. You need to share your knowledge. You have the resources, but we can, you know, this transfer and coming together, we will be stronger. So I love that title, Thomas. And so I was invited to the European Mime Federation to present the idea of how this could work. And I honestly did not think it would fall on fruitful ground. But I did a short presentation. I said, you know, if we put everything together, and there was also Steve Austin at the ITM at the time who was talking, and maybe you remember the bank without money concept, because Yuri and I go with that. So that was also based on that. Everyone brings something to the table, and you can take away only how much you put in. And everyone can eat only so much, right? So if you have a surplus or something, maybe you can share. So that was the concept, and everyone seemed to love it. And suddenly we had 6, 7, 8 people who said we have to do it. And immediately from that meeting, I was asked to spend with colleagues, my colleague Ida van Henigen, who was then director of the Mime Institute in Holland, which was part of the three-part, there was a theatrist, dance institute, and Mime Institute. And we created like a model. We sat all 6 of us and we were thinking, and then of course the Dutch, being very organized, mapped out, this is who we need to talk to. And suddenly I found myself going to various governments in Holland, and talking about why it's necessary to support a network like this that will bring together Dutch with the, and there I learned that foreign governments actually invest into other democratic changes because of their political interests, and that it is okay to play to those political interests. Okay, to be pragmatic was the word. So a year later, we got our first funding, and we called this the Moving Academy of Performing Arts. The concept was that the partners at the table would come with a series of ideas or needs, and we would look at who has the resource or possibility to organize a section and to be able, so it was like, it became eventually even a training program with a curriculum in production management, working with the Utrecht Center for Media and Art Management. We had touring, we had technical, and the structure was hierarchical. When we agree by consensus, it happens. When the projects happen, there is no hierarchy. Oh, I'm more senior, you're more younger, I have more. No, we all do the same things at the same time. So if we had, say, light design, which was really an issue for movement practice, if we had everyone from the technician to the artist, from the artist back, would have training together. Then we would all, artists included, learn how we can put the cables in neat order, because the next person to use it can then use it easier. We learned the communication transfer of communication of ideas between technical and different departments, and how terminology, how you need to build your own vocabulary. So everything was great. And then we had the brilliant idea, wouldn't it be lovely that because it came from here, we would have it in Croatia, the center. So we had a meeting. We were told, oh yes, great, wonderful. There was this big venue called Ras. That would be beautiful space, etc. But it needs to be equipped. So we took a fundraising initiative, and very quickly through European theaters, we collected a truckload of equipment, because every theater, every member of the Mime Federation, lots of members from the ITM with venues, every theater has a little bit of a surplus. So they, well, here you can get 5 cars, you can get this, you can get that. And then we said, wow, now we have, how can we transport this across Europe and tour and all of that? And a friend said, well, my friend has a trucking company, I'll talk to them. So the trucking company said, yeah, we got the truck, we'll paint it, and they painted, and we had this big, beautiful launch of the MAPA truck with all the partners' names, and it went with the equipment around, and we came 3 times trying to put the equipment into a space that they said would be appropriate. They meaning the city, they meaning the Ministry of Culture. We had the war came into the mix, unfortunately. We had informal meetings where the Minister of Culture from Holland came to an informal private visit here to talk about the need, why to support it, which actually worked against us. We were at the time also kicked out just after the war from Zagreb Theatre. So the network helped to support a small office for 2 more years, and for 2 more years we were trying. What happened during the war and through the network, unfortunately, a lot of people today very, very active in the cultural field of Croatia and the broader region went through these programs. At the theater, it was the start of the outcome was the start of a production curriculum. Also, it was the starting point of the desire of a more structured approach. We need an academy. There was all sorts of things. And the last time was, yeah, you can have the dramaturgy curriculum was part of the 3 conferences that MAPA organized internationally, and Goran was in charge of those. But the outcome was always, well, if you want a venue, you have to leave it, or we would want the equipment to be housed in a reputable venue, not in the venue that you might be using, a reputable. And none of our partners could understand that. So also it was a ground for dissemination of talent. And I think partly because of the war in Croatia and the aftermath, a lot of our members and participants actually departed and are now either teaching through the MAPA, because MAPA continues in Holland. It no longer is a regional network. It's an organization, self-standing organization in Amsterdam. So people are teaching, or they got jobs in national theaters like in Rijeka, Zagreb, or the academy here or elsewhere. And they're in France, they're in Germany, they're in Austria. And the ones that remained, going a few years later, we try to keep that network. But the problem is, you maybe can share the values. You may have the same understanding and similar visions. But that one thing that everyone says, resilience is what carries us through. And it is true. In the circus, in the independent sector, resilience is key to being able to sustain and that desire. The networks, my God, if I was not part of the MAPA and I've stayed and I'm still involved in different ways with the ITM or the European Dancehouses Network, I think as a professional, either have decided I'm quitting, or as a human being, I would be totally out of my mind and crazy, because the bouncing back ideas within members, whether it's formal or informal network, you go back to that value and you realize, wow, if 50 people recognize the idea, then that idea from different aspects, that idea must have some value or reason to exist. So if someone doesn't understand it, one or two people, and yes, they are the gatekeepers, it cannot be that the idea is not good. So that's my philosophy, how it's sustained. Informal is where all my networks, and yes, I am a member of the Dancehouses Network, even though our organization ran the Zagreb Dance Center for 7 years, and we initiated that in 1989. That whole dynamic of building up that center would not have been possible without my colleagues in EDN and in MAPAs. The center, what MAPAs provided in the building of the center, we had people from Fifth Theater, we had technicians from Holland come to Zagreb to talk with the architects, all for free. I mean, they pay their own way to consult. A lot of things were not taken into account, that's fine. But there was a lot of support. So we go back to that exchange of value, we go back to resilience, which is really, really critical. But one thing I'm realizing, we are all resilient. The artist is resilient, but you cannot be resilient isolated.
Of course.
And so the network helps build that resilience and sustain that passion. And yeah, where we didn't succeed to formalize things, we have succeeded in maintaining partnerships, very informal networks and beautiful continuous exchanges of ideas, engagement, and all of that. And actually, MAPAs is what once now I think is fulfilled by the European Commission in a way, because we have, that was the premise, right? I mean, we were not funded, but that exchanges and multiple partnerships and production. So anyway.
You're making a really lovely introduction to Anera, because actually you mentioned the word resilience, and that was one of the words that we also put in the introduction to this conference. Like, one of the things that the dance and circus scenes are sharing is the creativity and resilience, but it's also nice to have support. And that's actually why we're coming to Anera, because as a head of Creative Desk Europe, I mean, I would like to talk to you about the support that Creative Europe and the role that Creative Europe had in what we could call a rise of European platforms and networks over the last decade. And Laurent also mentioned it, that EDN is also funded by Creative Europe, Circostrada as well, co-funded by Creative Europe. And what is the logic, and how do you see it? What was the logic behind this support? What was the need that was recognized in order to provide this support for creation and maintenance of the European platforms and networks?
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I would like to present myself first of all, because I have this privilege working in Ministry of Culture for already 15 years. I was witnessing all of your experiences up till now. So last 5 to 6 years, I am head of office of Creative Europe Desk, which in Croatia is a case differently from France case, where it's an independent organization that is responsible for Creative Europe Desk. For example, in Serbia is also, the desk is also in frame of the ministry. So it's kind of a different approach. Just to make it clear, if any of you as international guests are interested in contacting your Creative Europe Desk, so that you know. So as I said, I was really very privileged to follow all of those processes that you were involved in field of dance, also in field of circus. And this fact that actually it was kind of a multi-direction process, where a nice family as Europe it is actually helped to our Croatian context and scene to develop their own associations, their own capacities, to build up some really important ties and values and shared cooperations. I think that this was a very, very like interesting process in seeing, because last 15 years you were kind of really babies, as you said. So this fact that you entered in a family, in a European family throughout Creative Europe, I believe that really helped to the at least circus scene, but also to dance scene, to strengthen their capacities and directions. I would also agree with Mirna that Thomas' title, Together, Stronger Together, really sum up really the best of the best that a network as it is can bring. And that's also, getting back to your question, that's also what Europe has recognized. And throughout Creative Europe program, at the last call that was launched in 21 with the deadline it was, I think, in August, they were planned to support 30 projects, and at the end they supported 39, I think, no, 36. Mm-hmm. So it also kind of reflects the value of the network at the European level that they have recognized. I also took a sneak peek on some statistics, mm-hmm. so to be prepared, because the results as they are, they were launched like 1.5 months ago, something like that. So they stated that the most relevant and the most important priority that they reached throughout this particular call was the fact that there was an increase of cultural access to and participation in culture, as well as audience engagement and development of the network itself. So Europe is very practical in their priorities, and actually strengthening the ties and the collaborations between cultural operators is the main priority. They are not, let's not be illusional in thinking that they are kind of they have strict logical political goals. And what is very nice for all of us, that at the local level, when it goes in cascades, it reflects so well that we have some nice results in the field, actually. So I would like to conclude, not to interrupt, because I think so many things were already said, but I would like to conclude with some of the key words that were pointed out. And as I think that they are the strongest points of networks in general. So it's this lack of hierarchy, which Mirna stated out, pointed out. I think this is very important because you feel free to communicate and to express your opinions and needs in a free active system. Advocacy, and which is very important, we witness it at the local level when you have this direct communication with some policymakers that you can go to. And I think the third strongest point is the fact that you're building up these family ties and collaborations and kind of a standardized, unified approach, which actually is a good reflection of the fields.
And what I really love that you came back to that term that Mirna was using, the lack of hierarchies, because there is actually the quote by Philippe Legal, who is the president of Territoires, that I really found lovely, and that is reflective. And he was talking about the circus artist's way of life and how it is actually inherently political. And I think that what he's saying is also very relevant for both independent circus and dance scene, because he said that this way of life is inherently political because of their embrace of collective and rejection of hierarchies. And that's really something that I think somehow sticks out of this all this discussion. And I would, this moment, because it's 11:15, I would like to know if there are any questions from the audience, maybe. Yes, Imre.
I want to know how many circus associations are in the Croatian network? How many?
The network is umbrella organization, but not for the association, it's for the artist.
Okay.
For the artist, for the workers in circus, technicians, dramaturg, choreographer. And
how many people then?
Now on the first call, we have 20 person. But now we are prepared for the second call, and I hope that we will have around 50 members after this.
Thank you. And for Chloé, I have also another question. I know that France is very good organized in circus field as in having a big federation also. So Territoires du Cirque, it's a network, a national network. It's not a European one. What is the relation between the national networks and the federation? And why is not interesting to develop a federation who has more than 800 circus schools?
Yeah, you're talking about the federation that is for circus schools. It's
okay.
In France it's quite different, and I think it's a shame, because it should be a continuity between the place where we teach circus arts and the place where we show circus arts. But in France, it's like in dance. It's really separated. You have the dance schools and then the dance places, and even the dance pupils, they don't go to see dance shows. It's absurd, but it's a fight for us. But it's really significant that there are two federations. There are two networks, and they don't really speak to each other. I think it's something that used to be. It used to be really squared. Like you had the teaching area and the theater area. The new view of how it works, and that's the teenager thing. It's because we do both in the same place, so we feel a little in between. We have interest in communicating on both sides, but both sides are really organized and specialized on their part. So we need to find a way of transversality between those interests. But the difficulties, for example, the federation is more under education ministry. Ministry of Education more than cultural. So some structures are on both sides, like we are also in Circostrada. I think there should not be one network for everything, because it makes the discussion really more complex. But we need to be easy with the fact that the structures, they are in different networks, and so they bring different experience to different networks, and they also get different experience, and they also see how the networks are organized, and sometimes you feel more comfortable with the values of some networks that you cannot find in others, or that the way they are organized. So there should be more discussion, but I think it will not come from the network. It will come from the basis, from the members that will go from one network to another.
Any other questions?
I was just wondering about Circostrada, because it's a European network, but you're also connected to some other parts of the world. How do you make the bridge between all that and to manage, because it's already a lot to invest in a European network, and what's the link with them? And is it like regular also meetings you have, or is everybody a bit, how we say, on their own also to organize themselves in each country? Or yeah, how do you create the link?
So yeah, the core is the European memberships, the European members, but through the time there was some, first some of the members that are outside of the Europe came to us, Circostrada, to be part of the network, because it was important to have this label of being a part of bigger network. Is also because there is a lot of knowledge that is shared among the membership, and it's a free network, so you don't have to pay for it, and you can have access to everything. So there was one part of the membership outside of Europe that asked to become, and then the network decided that it's okay to be outside the Europe. And the others were just deliberate, because like basically from France members, it was not enough to only go and learn about Europe. They were seeking for new artists, new inspiration, and that decided to spread out and to see what is happening in North Africa, what is happening in South America. So like when the Circostrada decided to go for like, we should go like in the Corona time, we should go to the Mexico, but we did it online. Then we go there and we find a good partner that will help us to see what is going on in this particular region or a country, what they need, how like a network with a big membership can support them, and who are the stakeholders in the region. There is always like ongoing yearly communication between the members. During pandemic, we had a lot of Zoom meetings just to sustain and to see what is going on, who needs support, which kind of support, and what we are all learning from the lockdowns and the pandemic, and how we can be more resilient towards it. In this frame, Circostrada was part of Perform Europe. That was, if I get it correctly, a sum of money that was left in the Creative Europe, and was decided to make a consortium of dance, festival, circus networks to work towards new, more sustainable touring. This was one kind of support that was giving during the pandemic. But there is also like Circostrada support members from a particular region or a country to work together. They're all put in contact, and if there is some problem or some obstacle that the region has, we are there to support them. The new thing is that there is also a new advocacy budget. So if there is a member from a region that needs some smaller budget to support for some kind of meeting, I don't know, promotion, they can ask. For example, at the moment, a Greek partner, I will not say the name because it's embedded, yes, The Greece is going to be some. One city is going to be a European capital of culture. They don't have a contemporary circus in the program, and there is a party that is really trying to change this. And Circostrada is helping them to speak to the capital culture or coordination team, to the city, and there we are giving a small amount of money just for meeting and to, like, if they want to invite somebody, they can pay travel expenses and this kind of stuff.
Are there any other questions? Maybe we could just, I know that we are behind the schedule. Lauren, are you still with us? And maybe, as you mentioned, Perform Europe. And if I'm not mistaken, European Dancehouses Network is also a member of the consortium of the Perform Europe. Maybe it would be interesting to say a couple of words about that project.
Yep, thank you. So Perform Europe was, how do you call that? A tender, a call opened by the EU Commission. And because EDN wants to create connection between networks, of course, with different kind of organization and initiative, we create bridges with different art sector and ITM, Circostrada. I'm going to be so bad naming all the partners of Perform Europe, sorry for that. We decide to create this consortium to answer to the tender, and we succeed on that. So Perform Europe is a very kind of experimentation to it's connected to what we have lived due to the pandemic, and how mobility has been a nightmare, of course, for the dance sector. I'm talking about the dance sector because our sector is based on mobility, for sure, in the art form and on the economical need. We need to go out of our national country if we want to make possible for life. For a dance piece to have a life. You understand what I mean, I hope. And if it's not clear, please ask, because not to be in the same room, it could create a misunderstanding. Sorry for that. So Perform Europe is a grant of €2,600,000 to conceive a possible tool connected to the numeric, digital, thank you. Digital and mobility. So how to connect the artist, how to connect the professional, how to create this bridge if mobility is not possible. So it's also a way to talk about equity, meaning that professional is not only a person or a guy who is a director of dancers, but a professional is an artist, a professional is a curator, a professional is a policymaker, a professional, we are all professionals of our sector. So we create an open call for a jury composed of different persons based all over Europe, not connected to our organization, not connected to IETM, not connected to Circostrada, not connected to EDN. So we deliver a very, I don't know to call that, a jury not connected to that, any pressure. And also talking about mobility and footprint, because we talk about pandemic, but before the pandemic, we were already in discussion about the climate change and the ecological responsibility that we have in our sector. So how we connect different kind of organization to create a kind of green ticket, a green tour all over Europe. How we can create, how we can connect different places very close, and also a very strong line all over Europe to enable the possibility to have a big touring in dance with this external jury. So we are in an experimentation, sorry for my English. And of course, we are analyzing this, and we are going to deliver our data to the EU Commission, and we will see this tool, if this experimentation is relevant to conceive maybe something else in the future, but it will be in the head of the EU Commission. This is the distinction I made between a cooperation project and a network, if I may. A cooperation project, of course, you are funded by the EU Commission to create an experimentation, and I would say that all the benefit goes to the partners of the experimentation project, the cooperation project. You are to make that, to try something new. But as a network, you have the responsibility to collect the data from the field And this is not an empty boxes. This is built with all the members locally grounded, but you collect data, you collect the image, you try to see what are the challenges of the sector, and you try to make this, to give this to the EU Commission to create a strong conversation with our policymaker, because this is a conversation, not only a hierarchy also in the EU policy. So thank you for this possibility to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurent. And I think this is also a wonderful example of what can happen when big networks also come together to work on projects that are actually in the interest of all the professionals in our sector of performing arts. If there are no other questions, and as we are a bit behind the schedule, and as Antonia is also moderating the next panel, I invite you for a short break, 10 minutes, and then we meet for the next panel. And keep joining forces, and thank you so much to everybody.